Marauders for the Month by lishiee. Chapter 11 Constellations. The next morning, Lily went to breakfast. She decided she would need to eat after the night she had. Thank God she did, because it was amusing to say the least. It had been eerily silent when McGonagall had entered the Great Hall, all conversations between seventh years stopping. She had run down what had happened the previous night. All of the Gryffindors listened as she explained how the situation was de-escalated. Many of the seventh years who hadn't drunk were sniggering and jostling their friends who had drank and had been a part of the screeching in the hallway. Pandora was sitting over with the Slytherins, joining Dorcas and Regulus in ridiculing Evan and Barty, who looked like death. Once McGonagall finished her spiel, breakfast continued as normal. After she finished breakfast, she skipped to the library and started on the 2 homeworks the girls hadn't done for her. Her arithmetic homework was an essay, as always, her alchemy homework and reading, being a bit difficult, more tedious if anything. After finishing her homework and eating lunch, Lily spent her afternoon lying outside reading with Remus. Whenever both of them had free time, they would read together, nowhere specific. It was a nice day out though, so Lily had suggested they go outside and sit somewhere shady. Their reading time surprisingly did not get interrupted once, which was a miracle for Lily these days. The only thing that happened out of the ordinary is halfway through, Regulus showed up and sat a safe but close distance from them. It was now the dark of night, and Lily was quietly but efficiently skipping her way to the astronomy tower. She had snagged the map from Marlene's nightstand before sneaking out of the dorm and into the hallways. Lily hadn't necessarily told Mary and Marlene she had a project to do with Pandora tonight. It's not like they had to know everywhere she went. Anyway, they would have either gone with her or made her dress super nice, calling it a date. Those 2 girls know better than anyone, though, that she doesn't have time to date. Lily arrived at the astronomy tower and leaned against the railing, observing the stars. At home, she was able to see the stars, but seeing them from so high up was magical. Astronomy wasn't her favourite subject. She definitely liked some of her other subjects a lot more, but she could appreciate the night sky. Seeing the stars come together to make pictures, to create stories, always fascinated her a bit. When Peter was still in astronomy, he would always go on rants and tell her just about everything he knew. Lily has no idea why he dropped the class. Some of the facts he provided actually helped her pass her owls and allowed her to go to Newt level with astronomy. She had hugged and praised him for 3 days straight. Beautiful, isn't it? Lily was yanked out of her thoughts at the smooth and graceful sound of Pandora's voice. She glanced over to see the girl leaning up against the railing, looking at the sky. Just like she was. Pandora looked even better from the view Lily was getting. She had thought Pandora had already hit the epitome of beauty. However, her thoughts were changing with every second Pandora was bathed in the moonlight. The girl turned and smiled at her. God, she had to know what she did to Lily, what Lily would do for her. Got the parchment? Pandora neatly laid her arms on the railing and propped her chin up on them, looking up at Lily through her eyelashes. Lily's knees started to feel weak. How had a week made it so Lily's legs turned to jelly any time Pandora even looked her way? Yeah, it's right here. Lily pulled the parchment out of her pocket and unfurled it. Pandora pulled a quill out of her hair and immediately drew a compass in the bottom left. Drawing a map of the night sky was a bit difficult. Going from round to flat hurt Lily's brain. The 2 girls quickly labelled the only 3 planets that were out tonight: Jupiter, Mars, and Saturn, because they were extremely bright and easy to spot. The other thing that was easy to spot was Sirius. The star shone as bright as the boy did. Lily drew the star on the west side of the map. The only things they needed to draw in were 10 constellations and any other important stars the professor had drawled on about. Easy work. There's Leo. Pandora used the end of her quill to point slightly above Saturn. And there's Regulus. She smiled softly and slowly sketched it out, labelling the constellation and Regulus star along the way. Lily loved constellations, but it took her a while to find them and to find the pattern. Once she did, though, she couldn't lose it. Lily should know the constellations, and she should be able to find them. But her love for astronomy slowly deteriorated over her 6th and 7th year as she had to deal with tons upon tons of homework each week. It got to the point where she only learned about what she needed to. "Right there?" she asked, pointing her own quill in the general direction it looked like Pandora was drawing in. "Southwest from Saturn, where there seemed to be stars that stuck out." Pandora glanced up and let out a giggle. She lifted her empty hand and lightly directed Lily's hand more upward. "There." The shiver caused by Pandora's touch that Lily had to resist was ridiculous. Lily squinted at where the quill was pointed, still not seeing it. After a minute, she could confidently say she pinpointed Regulus. Of course that little shit has his own star like Sirius, but she couldn't find the star that connected with Regulus to create the Leo constellation. Pandora quickly finished sketching the constellation and glanced up again, placing her quill on the ledge and pushing herself off the railing. Pandora shuffled behind Lily and lightly gripped her wrist, tracing out the constellation. Lily could feel her breath on her neck. This time, she could not stop the full-body shiver. "It's going to be a bit slanted, but it'll look somewhat like a coat hanger. A right trapezoid with a hook on top. See?" Pandora was gently tracing the shape she was describing right in front of Lily's eyes. With both her hands, Lily followed her finger, which had a snake ring curved around it, and finally caught sight of the shape. She knew it was supposed to represent the Nemean lion, but Pandora was right in saying it was in the shape of a coat hanger. Lily nodded her head and let out a small sigh of relief when Pandora dropped her hand and walked back to the parchment. Her wrist burned as she started to scan the sky again, looking for any constellations she knew she would be able to find. She was able to find Orion. Orion's belt was very easy for her to spot, and she drew it right under Jupiter, labeling Regal as well. Pandora drew in Ursa Minor towards the middle of the parchment and shifted it somewhat to the north side. Their faces were in close proximity again, and Lily felt the need to hold her breath. After Pandora started to draw in Ursa Major too, Lily gave up on finding any other constellations. Last semester, when she did this project, her partner had to help point out most of the constellations and stars to her. The only ones she could confidently recognize were Ursa Major, Ursa Minor, and Orion. She was a lost cause for anything else. "Are you going to draw in any more?" Pandora asked, glancing up at Lily from where she was slightly hunched over the parchment. Lily had been staring at the parchment, more like Pandora's hands, in silence, zoning out slightly. Lily glanced up at the sky again, thinking maybe she could spot a constellation, but gave up immediately. "I can't find any more. The only things I could find are the brighter stars." Pandora arched her eyebrow and stared at Lily until she picked up her quill and started to draw in the stars. Spotting Procyon and Vega was easy. They talked about them constantly, and as Lily said, they were some of the brightest stars in the sky at the moment. Next, she found the Pleiades, relatively easy if you ask her. They were right in front of their view. The last star she could think of to find was Arcturus. She had to go to the opposite side of the astronomy tower to find it. Lily had accidentally grabbed the parchment to draw in Arcturus instead of just pinpointing it and trying to replicate it to its spot onto the parchment by memory. She did all of this in quick succession, not wanting Pandora to think she wasn't doing any work. "Arcturus, that's Regulus's middle name, you know." He said his family likes star names. "The star is a part of the Boots constellation," Pandora commented, leaning next to Lily again. She once again traced it in the sky, using the same finger that had the snake ring on it. Lily had never liked snakes, but if it was on Pandora, her mind switched up. Once Lily drew in Arcturus, Pandora leaned down to draw in the rest of Boots, lightly brushing hands with her. Lily could not for the life of her tell if Pandora did it on purpose. Either way, it drove her crazy. "How many more constellations do we need to draw in?" Pandora questioned, drawing out the kite-ish shape of boots. Lily glanced at the parchment and counted the constellations they had already drawn. We have 5 more, Lily confidently said. Pandora stood up, flipping her hair a bit to the side. The girl slowly pointed her quill to the sky, creating a swirly trail until it stopped. Everything Pandora did was mesmerizing to Lily. Corvus, the name means crow. I love crows. Pandora once again traced the constellation, knowing Lily would not be able to see it otherwise. It was mostly in the shape of a backward P. I used to have a pet crow. Well, more like I fed a crow that wandered around my backyard, Pandora commented, starting to draw in the constellation. Listening to Pandora talk about constellations, even if it was just a few comments here and there, was the best thing about this project. The way the girl drew was even ethereal. Lily was slowly losing her strength as the night went on. Pandora finished the constellation and looked up once again, using her quill as a pointer. There's Virgo. That's my sign. Pandora did the usual trace and then draw, except this time she looked over at Lily, a questioning look in her eyes. Do you know your sign? Lily didn't know much about astrology. Their astronomy professor talked about how it was bollocks and not to believe it, so Lily never studied any of it. I was born January 30th. Pandora nodded her head, picking up the parchment and heading back to the other side of the astronomy tower. However, the girl did not do this before making a certain comment towards Lily, a look of mischief Lily had never seen glimmering in her eyes. You know, Aquarius and Virgos have pretty good compatibility. Silence. Pandora's shoes clicked against the ground. Now what in Merlin's name did that mean? Lily is assuming she's an Aquarius. Why would Pandora talk about their compatibility? Compatibility for what? Friendship? Love? Lily wasn't sure she wanted to know. What was Pandora trying to say? The rest of the time, Lily didn't pay attention to Pandora and her rambling about constellations. The only thing ringing in her head was Pandora's earlier comment. Compatibility, compatibility, compatibility. That word and the ring clinging to the one finger Pandora continued to use was the only thing on her mind. She watched the ring and only the ring, fearing she would stare too long at Pandora's eyes or face or anything else if she looked anywhere else. Pandora finished drawing out the constellations and labeling them. She handed Lily the parchment, paused for a second, then gently pulled the snake ring off her finger. The girl grabbed Lily's hand, opening it, and dropped the ring into it. Since you seem to like it so much, Pandora smiled, and then she was off. Lily stood there in shock. What had the girl done to her? Lily slowly made her way back to her dorm, quietly opening the door and flopping down onto her bed. She stared at the top of her canopy. Where were you? Marlene whispered, shuffling out of her bed. Lily didn't respond. She wasn't even sure her brain was working. Lily? Marlene appeared at her bedside and sat down. She took one look at Lily's face, the parchment in one hand and the ring in the other. Well, might as well embrace it, she smirked. Marlene grabbed the ring from Lily's hand and slipped it onto her pointer finger. She leaned down and lightly tapped Lily's cheek. Night, Evans, sweet dreams, she sing-songed, sauntering back to her bed. What has Lily gotten herself into? Thanks for listening. This is so fun. I hope, oh my god, Pandora is so fun. Thanks for listening.